Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a minute here.
Yes,
Shaking
it
up.
has.
Spencer, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
Busy week so far, and it's only getting
Crazy week.
busier. But always
Busy
got to
and
fit.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, always got to fit this in. We try and do Saturdays, but schedules get crazy. So
Mhm.
um, we're doing it this evening, and we got a lot to talk about.
Here
So
we are.
what are we
Yeah.
going to talk about?
Elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen it on their phones, but we're gonna break down the whole Israel, Palestine slash Hamas slash Iran thing. So
Yeah. It's
it's a
it's
complex situation, and I don't. I'm gonna throw this out there in the beginning. I don't know really where Palestine stands on this,
yeah.
but in regards to Hamas, Hamas is obviously a terrorist group, and I'm completely against what they're doing. And power to Israel.
Yeah,
I'll,
for sure. I mean,
I'll be blunt about it before we break into it.
oh yeah, no, I mean, don't want it to be a mystery, and it certainly isn't a mystery. I mean, what's going on is just it's horrific,
It's
right? It's
horrible. Yeah.
war. War is always just, I mean, it's awful, but
Like Israel pretty much just experienced their version of 9/11, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
want to talk about that later. But if you think about it, it's literally their version of that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's awful. So I think the best way to address this, and again, when things like this happen, not that they happen all the time, but they've certainly, I don't know, I feel like there's kind of a trend going on in different parts of the
Handful of times
world.
a generation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's always so much information out there, and these
Hmm.
are never simple. Like, I don't think these are ever simple issues, right?
Right. No.
Uh, yes, attack, a lot of people died. Who did it, and what are the next steps? Like, how do you
Yeah.
defend yourself? Yes, you can boil it down like that, but I mean, these are really, really complex issues, and I thought that,
Yeah.
or we thought that the best thing to do would just be to um, number one, sort of state some facts, some kind of quick to look at facts about like really what's going on, maybe a little history behind it too. Um, and we'll get there, but sort of an interesting take on it and how to look at this from the lens of being a U.S. citizen. I'm pretty sure everybody who listens to this podcast is a U.S. citizen and they live here. So, how does this relate to me?
Yeah.
And what could I maybe do about it?
Mhm.
Or something potentially happening here. You never know. So I think that's how we're going to approach it. And do you want to
Well,
kick
yeah,
things
I'll
off?
hop in and explain that access to information in our generation is kind of awesome and beautiful in itself. You know what I mean? We can hop on X and any Google, whatever, well, maybe not chat GPT, but you get what I'm saying. YouTube,
Yep.
you got all these podcasts and everything going on, and all these people are quick. They are, they're on the next hot topic like that. And someone who you really look up to, and someone that I'm starting to listen to now because you got me into him, is Patrick Bet David,
Yep.
who owns Valuetainment, right? Is the name of the company?
Yeah. Valuetainment.
Yeah. So there's Valuetainment, and he also does the PBD podcast. Spencer had sent me some links on them breaking down the Israel Palestine slash, we'll just say Israel Hamas situation, right?
Yeah.
Um, from what I gathered from it, because I listened to a whole long podcast of them breaking it down, and then I listened to a shorter one of just PBD breaking it down. Essentially, Palestine had most of Israel in 1948. Then the British stepped in. I don't know what happened with all that. I can only assume it had to do with World War II, because that was right around World War II ending, right? A few years later.
Yeah.
The British Accords, presented by the British, enacted by the British, pretty much pushed the Palestinians out of Israel and gave Israel to the Jews. If that was relocating them for whatever reason, going through the Holocaust and whatnot, I didn't look that deep into it, but regardless, we know British Accords pulled Palestinians out of Jerusalem, that area, whatnot, and then gave that land to Israel, and it became Israel. Ever since then, obviously, it's been a big problem. It sounds, I guess, somewhat similar to a conflict of how Americans are with Native Americans. Like, I think we get along really well, and we don't bomb each other, obviously, but there's always arguments and stuff going around saying like, oh, you came in, it was our land before you came in and took it, whatnot. So that's where the whole turmoil originates from, is Israel being gifted this land when it was owned by, again, I don't know if it was owned by whatever it was inhabited by the Palestinians.
It was their territory.
Right. Yeah. So they obviously do not get along and don't like each other and have never really liked each other. And more recently, in the last few years, I want to say it was actually called the Trump Accords. Trump came in and had, is it the Abraham Accords, I think?
I don't know.
Yeah. So they've gone back and forth with like gifting land to Palestinians. Like, okay, you know what? They call it the West Bank. So the West Bank is kind of more inland, and then the Gaza Strip is also given to Palestinians. So the Palestinians in Israel own West Bank and Gaza Strip. West Bank's way bigger than Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip's pretty small. I think you've probably seen the pictures of it online and whatnot. And so they have been given land. They've had land taken away. It kind of keeps going back and forth. Like there's so much conflict there. Something happens, and this isn't new. I mean, we've seen Israel and Palestine bomb each other before, and like in the last 10 years. I want to say when we were in college, we saw them in conflict like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Obviously not this severe and well thought out of an attack, and we're going to get into that, but it's not new that they're, I guess, enemies in a sense.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever saw them more peaceful and working together than when Trump came in and signed the Abraham Accords and sat Israel and Palestine down and said, why are we fighting? Well, because blah blah blah, and well, because blah blah blah. Like, that's what a good negotiator does. That's what a good foreign policy is based on. You know what I mean? You don't same thing with going back to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. That should have never happened. Someone should have stepped in. Specifically, I would say the U.S. president, because we're the one that was pushing Ukraine to join NATO and whatnot. And so it's like, someone's got to step in and say, hey, look, before we start fighting, before this happens, can we take a second and, come to terms together before this gets bloody? Well, being that Hamas is a terrorist group and not a government, and actually we'll get into that too, I don't think there's any reasoning with them anymore. People are calling for Israel to step up and
absolutely
you got to make amends, or they said Hamas set out a statement saying that they're open to negotiations, and quite frankly, I'm on the same page as Netanyahu. If you came and attacked my land like that, no shot. There's no coming back from that. And also, I don't know if people know this, but I text you about it when all this was going on. Israel is like, they're bad mother effers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Their military is top notch.
Well, they probably have the greatest intelligence agency in the world.
Yeah. What's it called?
Mossad.
Mossad, yeah. But yeah, and so it's just like a military you really don't want to mess with, and a people you don't really want to mess with because of their pure resiliency. You got to think, these people their grandparents went through the Holocaust. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They've been through it all, and they expect it all.
Right.
And I was talking to Phil, Phil, but him and I both love foreign policy and talking politics and whatnot, and he's very much fine-tuned and in the same page with us.
Yeah.
But him and I were talking that Israel has a doctrine, not a written doctrine or anything, but they believe in a 10-to-1. You kill one Israel, we kill 10 of yours, which is absolutely true. There's no eye for an eye with Israel. It's like, hey, you take out my eye, you lose both your legs. You know what I mean?
Well, that's Mossad. I mean, people say like the reason they're so effective is because they basically operate with no rules.
Right, they're ruthless.
Like they
Like
do
think
what they
about
want.
the CIA. The CIA's got to call their boss and say, "Hey, can I do this?
Yeah.
I give you the approval, but I got to call someone else. Hey, can we do
Yeah.
this? Yeah. Let me ask. Blah blah blah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go around. They follow extreme measures and rules, but a place like Israel, they're like, if you're planning something against us or working like violently
Mm-hmm.
against Israel, we don't care. We're gonna take you out, and we don't care
Yeah.
how we do it.
Right.
So, I don't know, again, too much on the history other than there's obviously turmoil there. Hamas is attacking and brutally murdering, almost on the side of genocide,
Mm-hmm.
the Israeli people. And obviously, we've already stated it's completely wrong, but what does this mean for the world?
Yeah.
Where's this going to go? What's going to happen? Obviously, Israel's going to retaliate, which they already have. They've already been bombing the Gaza Strip. They've sent
Mm-hmm.
100,000 troops and called 300,000 reservists up to the IDF, which is Israeli Defense Forces.
Yep.
It's going to be bloody, and I don't see anyone being able to stop Israel at this point.
Yeah.
And I think the saddest part is there's civilians on both sides that are going to get injured, and we talked about that in our group text. It's an unfortunate, probably the most unfortunate thing of war.
Yeah.
It's brutal for people in the military to die, but that's also what, I don't want to say they sign up for it, but they sign up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But as a civilian, you don't sign up to get your head chopped off in your house or blown up by a bomb in your apartment.
Yeah.
So
Well. Yeah. No kidding.
that's what happens when you have a terrorist organization that's running amok and doing horrible things, and then they go and hide behind the civilians. You know what I mean? It's the same happened with us in Afghanistan, fighting Al Qaeda and ISIS and all those, the Taliban, all those groups. We've talked firsthand with people that have experienced that. You know what I mean? That's like it's
Yeah.
brutal. Something that I don't know if you know this, but Hamas actually owns majority parliament in Palestine. So they are
Did
not.
know that.
Yeah, they're not just a regular terrorist group. You know what I mean? Like when Al Qaeda came and I think it was Al Qaeda that did the Twin Towers, right? I want to say Al Qaeda, Taliban, whatever it was, but
Al Qaeda. Yep.
yeah, they didn't have 55% majority of America or 55% majority of our greatest enemy.
Like
They
the
were just
Senate. Yeah.
right, exactly. They were just a radical terrorist group wreaking havoc. And they came and decided to try to cripple us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes to show that there's a lot of power that Hamas has actually behind their belt that they're batting with. And who's to say Iran's not involved and whatnot? But obviously, if they own majority of Palestinian parliament, then I don't know how to say that they're not just a terrorist group. Like they are damn near a government themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's super scary, and it's obviously just awful. I mean, in that podcast that you were referring to, I mean, one of the things they said is like, imagine the KKK having, what did they say, 55% of the Senate or something like that?
The Senate.
I mean, what the heck? Like,
Imagine
you
that.
really, really think about that. Like, that carries a lot of weight, and essentially, just a little bit different, but essentially that's happening. Obviously, not on our soil, but somewhere else, and I mean, it's just crazy. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot you could say about it. What do you think? It's like you look at Ukraine, right? I mean, I feel like this has been going on for so long now, and I don't feel like it's nearing its end. I know that Putin has now threatened, and this is not the discussion point that we're going to go down, but I know Putin has like now threatened nuclear warfare on Ukraine, like potentially. Doesn't mean the big nuke, right? Nothing like that, but still nuclear warfare, but on a smaller scale.
Of some sort, yeah.
There's different weapon systems that they use that do involve, nuclear warfare, and he is fully threatening that. Whether will he do it? Don't know. But I mean, what do you think? Like the outcome? Do you have an opinion? I mean, yeah, where does this go?
Are we saying Ukraine and Russia or
Israel?
I personally, as horrible as it is, and I don't know if people are going to find this ruthless or not, but I don't think the U.S. should be involved at all.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think we should, and let me stand clear, I also don't think we should be involved in the Ukraine stuff either.
Yeah.
We should have fought hard in the beginning to be a good leader of the world and set good standards and try to help them not come to a violent conflict, but instead we pushed them into a violent conflict. I think that's Ukraine's battle to have out now. We shouldn't be sending them billions of dollars when we can use billions of dollars at home. Same with our munitions, but I don't want to see the same thing happen with Israel either. I'm for Israel. I think maybe it is their time to retaliate and, show them who's boss, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that they should be doing that at the dime of the American citizen and with our own defense munitions and whatever else, you know what I mean? Otherwise, we're just going to be crippling our own infrastructure and crippling our own people back at home, and that's going to leave us weak for something to happen. But
yeah, and that's probably a perfect segue into this next point.
Absolutely.
Which is, and sort of where I'm going to go with this is a different perspective. I will admit this is not, although I share the perspective, it's not my original thought. Guy by the name of Mike Glover owns Fieldcraft Survival, former SF guy, very highly decorated, and he's doing a lot of really incredible things. But he released a video and he kind of walks through his take on really what's going on, and he sort of does a comparative analysis to an event that obviously every American, I think everybody around the world will never really forget, and which is 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll kind of walk through this. I mean, you look at 9/11, 19 terrorists, right? 19 terrorists. They're all in flight school, so they're getting flight certifications, whatever that looks like.
And they were doing that in the U.S., right? Like they were learning in the U.S.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. And as far as like weapons, the planes, that's another story. But as far as actual weapons being used on U.S. soil, these guys had box cutters, right? You look at videos of like Hamas. I mean, this is a ridiculously coordinated high
missiles, RPG,
it's
AKs.
Yeah,
they had it all.
It's incredible, and I mean, not in a good way, but it's just it's a very different scenario. So, but you look at 9/11, 19 guys, all flight school students getting certification. Only real weapons that are at hand are box cutters, the kind that you can go get at Target or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. Yeah. So they did not have super advanced weapon systems. They had a lot of willpower, and as a result, they killed 3,000 Americans in one day.
Yeah.
Right. So then you pivot and you look at Israel. At least kind of early on, what really set all this off was there was 800 to 1,000 Hamas terrorists deployed from the Gaza Strip, as you talked about, with a highly comprehensive, coordinated, and strategic plan of attack. Right. So what did they target first? They targeted that concert that was basically in the middle of the desert. And I think at that concert, there's a name for it. It's something massacre. But I think there they killed 270 people. These are elderly people. Supposedly, I haven't seen any like proof with my own eyes, and you always get headlines and whatnot. But they're beheading babies. Yeah. They're so-called kidnapping women. The only reason they're kidnapping women is they're raping them, and then they just kill them.
Can you see
there
this
you go.
screen?
Yeah.
Just so it's easier, like going back to what I was saying earlier, this is West Bank, so they own a portion like right in the middle of Israel.
Yeah.
And this is the Gaza Strip. So Gaza Strip is cut off from West Bank.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very helpful. So, they're doing these things, but then, consider that and how coordinated this is. I mean, these guys are coming in on kind of those motor powered, what do you call them?
I don't know what they're called. Like they were calling them hang gliders. They're not technically.
Yeah, they're like the motor powered hang gliders that you sit on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're coming in on these. They're coming in from the water. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
But then we think about 9/11, and this is where you really got to kind of relate three events. 9/11. So just think about what we've talked about so far. So 9/11, how that really took place. Think about what's happening in Israel and how Hamas is executing this. And then think about kind of the current state of America, like here that we can all relate to on our own, on our own ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep those in mind. But ultimately, what led to 9/11? The U.S. did what they are very good at, and they were hyper focused on counterterrorism, but outside of the U.S. Which, if that's going to be your focus, it's a give or take. So they're focusing outside of the U.S., which means they're ignoring their own borders, our own borders. So think about this. Right now, we have tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people, literally daily, down on the Texas-Mexico border, Mexico-California border, of people crossing, Arizona, people crossing our border right now because it's open. Mm-hmm. And we literally have zero clue who these people are.
Yeah.
And people could say, well, they're all from Mexico. No, they're not.
Well,
Think about how easy it is.
Coming from Mexico, but where are they from?
Exactly. I mean, think about how easy it is, to get into Mexico. You are, I'm pretty sure this is verified. Chinese coming from Mexico. You're getting Venezuela. You're getting people from all over the world because we basically have shown them that, hey, there's a little funnel here that you can come through, and we're not going to be as rigorous perhaps as we once were, or maybe as we talked about at one time. Yeah. So this is absurd. So they're putting people on a wait list. So you kind of hold them, put them on a wait list, and then before they release them into the U.S., they're saying, listen,
these are the only ones that are getting caught too. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're the only ones not even being touched or seen.
Right. So they're the only ones being caught, and they're basically telling them before releasing is you're going to have to check back in with us in 2 to 5 years. Like what? 2 to 5 years? We have no idea who these people are. So if you sort of take your shoes off and put yourself in a different shoes of a terrorist, of some psychopath who wants nothing but horrific things to happen to the U.S. and its people and its government, like how are you going to exploit this major weakness, stupidity is what I would call it. How do you exploit that and ultimately take advantage of this situation and achieve what you want to achieve? Well, you're going to do a couple things here. Number one, you're going to create internal distrust between the citizens of the U.S. and its own government, right? You're going to increase political divisiveness, or at least you're going to do things that might influence that in hopes that happens. And again, I'm 25 years old. I don't know of a time in my life where the political divisiveness, like in our own country, has been more than what it is today. I think it's horrible. Yeah. So they've checked those two boxes, right? We know how we feel about the U.S. government, and you're going to stretch their resources thin. That's what you want. You want them to not be so focused internally. You really want to stretch them thin. So how are we going to do that, right? You're going to have them give hundreds of billions, you said billions, it's hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. Yeah. My guess is we're probably going to do the same at some level with Israel, right? You look at the shit show that happened in Iraq and pulling out of Iraq. Like the list goes on, and the result, I don't want to manifest this if that's what you want to call it, but I mean, you just compare to where we were pre 9/11 and where we are today. There are way too many similarities to ignore to be ignored. Yeah. We're spread too thin, and now we've taken our eye off the ball. So basically, does that sound familiar? Yeah. Right? And it's just, that's kind of the perspective. Like sometimes I think a lot of these things, and I hate to say this, but a lot of these things are kind of overblown almost. Like I think they're not exaggerated, but it's like, okay, is it really going to happen?
Right.
You never want to say, no, it's not going to happen. But at some point, it's like, Well, the likelihood of it happening is very low.
Right.
I want to assume that the likelihood of anything happening like 9/11 is very low, and I'm going, maybe I'm sure that might be true,
Hmm.
but like I said, like there's too many similarities between where we were and where we are and where we're going from 9/11 to today. And it's very scary, honestly, and
And
it
I
can't
mean,
be ignored.
I don't know if you've seen it, but Hamas themselves have said that they want they want America to be felt too, or they want America to feel
Yep.
Israel's pain too.
Yep.
Like, you've supported Israel for so long, you're against us, and guess what? That means you're an enemy to Hamas.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And go ahead. I'm gonna pull up this quote really quick.
yeah, no, I mean it's just that's where you really seek. And again, credit to Mike Glover and Fieldcraft Survival, but like that's where for myself, and I think you would probably agree, like you really turn to people who have been there, right, and they've seen these situations play out in different countries and governments being overthrown and whatnot, and a lot of these guys. Like someone very close in our lives, I mean, his career really kicked off in special operations because of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Like before that, there was not much activity, and
Well,
you know, so a lot of these things kind of trigger him, and they've like, oh my gosh, I've seen that before.
yeah. Let me get your take on this really quick. Um, you've seen that there's American casualties involved with the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say there's 14 dead Americans.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number.
In the original attack. There's also said to be American hostages that got taken to Gaza as well.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on now? Like, that's something I would argue we need to be involved in. Like,
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
our special operations is probably out there, if not they should be out there if not already.
Yeah.
But I guess I wanted to hear, but
No, I mean, I
if
think
you we should definitely be involved in that situation. The
Yeah.
all out war against each other, maybe not so much, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you have American citizens in other countries where they are certainly in danger, like they are right now, I think you do whatever it takes to get them back.
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty simple.
which
I don't
we
think there's.
absolutely failed to do in Afghanistan too.
Yeah, I mean, that was just. Well, that's another thing, right? So, like, you look at countries, so we backtrack to kind of the different perspectives that we looked at. We look at 9/11, we look at what's going on right now. We look at how most of our attention and hundreds of billions of dollars have gone to Ukraine, when there's more suffering in the cities of the United States of America right now than, at least, again, we're young. So, like, as far as I can remember, I don't remember seeing cities in such a horrible, horrible place. But let's just take all the money that we could have used, internally to really help the citizens of the United States, and basically kind of build us up, and let's send them to this other country. So then you look at Iraq and how we pulled out. Who would want to, if God forbid something terrible happened on U.S. soil, maybe like 9/11 again, and the U.S. has to reach out. Biden, as crappy of a job as I think he and his whole freaking administration do, he is really old. Clearly, there's something wrong with him. So I don't sit here, trying to make fun of him. But I mean, what's he gonna do if we need to make a call, and if he's gonna mumble on the phone and say, "Hey,
Right.
we need help"? Well, what about all of our people that you just abandoned in Iraq? I mean, you couldn't have made the U.S. look worse pulling out of there. Did it need to happen? I mean, it probably did need to happen, but like the way that they did it, I mean, is unbelievable. So you basically, all you're doing is you're embarrassing yourself, which is speaking for the country. So you need help. I mean, who are you going to call? You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, there's too many, the sequence of events, I think, that have been going on over the past couple of years. It's just, there's too many shitty ones than there are good ones. Absolutely. And I find it very difficult to believe that people would really want to jump on the bandwagon.
It's tough, man.
So
I mean, if I were another country, I wouldn't want to be involved with the U.S. like that.
Yeah, I know.
Not
So
after what's been going on.
Yeah. Anything else to add to kind of what's going on here? I mean, again,
I'm
it's
just
like
gonna
so.
pull up
Yeah.
this really quick.
Yeah. It's what I was going to say is, I mean, it's super complex. I think what you and I are trying to do is simplify it a little bit and make it a little easier to understand, and not just factually, but also.
And I mean, like, I'll say this too. Neither you nor I know everything that's going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
we
goodness,
both
yeah.
pride ourselves at least on doing our own research and trying to better understand the situation instead of just watching and seeing whatever comes on the TV and believing what's put out there for you to see. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on X all day because there's 10 different sides of the story on X going on right now, so I can read the Palestinian side, I can read the Israeli side, I can read the Hamas side, I can read, well, I don't want to say the Hamas side because I won't read
Yeah.
stuff, but I can read the Iranian side. That's another thing too. We just gave what, a $6 billion grant to Iran a month ago,
Yeah, I believe so.
wasn't it? And everyone's like, oh, well, you know, that they signed a thing saying it's just for humanitarian aid and medical and whatnot. It's like, okay, I understand that, which they're correct. That's exactly what it was for, right? But when it comes to large budgets from a country, it's not just like you don't have someone standing there watching you behind your back. Like the U.S. isn't standing there with the Iranian government saying, hey, what are you spending $6 billion on? Hey, what are you spending $6 billion on? All that government does is say, hey, we're going to put $6 billion into the medical fund or the humanitarian fund or whatever, and then we're going to take $6 billion out and move it to funding terrorism, funding this, funding that.
Right. Right.
Sure, you're freeing up money for them is the problem. It's not that you're handing them $6 billion to use on terrorism. You're handing them $6 billion to use on something else, which frees up money to use on terrorism.
The other, so I think, whenever we talk about things like this, I think actually everything we talk about, the question that has to be asked is like, okay, how does this apply to me, and how can I actually, maybe do something? And when I say do something, I don't.
Before we jump into that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna show. I sent this to you guys earlier, but this is from a gentleman, Brother Rashid's account. The Hamas leader and founder Khalid Mashal came on and gave a speech. I want to say this was this morning. Yesterday night. And this is what was taken from the speech. So, to show anger, this is them interpreting what he said. One, to show anger, especially next Friday, meaning I'm assuming today's Wednesday.
This coming Friday.
This coming Friday, so for Americans, that'll be the 13th. In Muslim countries and also among Muslim diaspora around the world. He called it the Friday of Al-Aqsa flood. He said this will send a message of rage to Zionists and to America specifically. He asked for financial help from all Muslims around the world to help with their money. He called it financial jihad, which I think you've heard the term jihad before. It's pretty much like all-out gifting of spirit and physical being to Allah and the mission, right? At least that's what I've heard as the interpretation is jihad. So this is their financial jihad, I guess, is what he's requesting.
Yeah.
He asked Muslims to give to fighters of Gaza in order to compensate them for the destruction. He asked political pressure from Muslim leaders and Muslim nations to stop Israel's military invasion of Gaza. So I'm assuming that's, hey, Iran, hey, Afghanistan, whoever it is, send your militaries to help us because the Jew is the bad guy. And then, let me just highlight this here, sorry. Most important thing, he asked all Muslims around the world to carry jihad by their souls, to fight and be martyrs of Al-Aqsa. He wants Muslims to fight against the Jews, starting with Muslims who live in the countries surrounding Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, but also other countries, to go to the borders and try to enter or enter, right? We've just had this conversation. Each by his own means. He said this is the time for jihad to be applied on the ground rather than just in theory. He asked the mujahideen to go in long caravans to spill their blood on the land of Palestine.
Gosh.
And these are his final words. Funds are important, but today we are asking your blood and souls to be sacrificed for Palestine.
Holy cow.
And this is...
Yeah, I mean, that's just terrifying. Like, that's honestly terrifying to read. And we talk about the border crisis. Ugh. I mean, he, you know who else talks about it? This guy.
Yeah. Like, it's not...
And
it's
he
not
doesn't really care about your money.
No. You...
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like throw this out there. If these people came to America, we are like the absolute epitome of what they hate. They do not like Western democracy. They don't like they don't like normal people freedom. You know what I mean? They don't believe in that stuff. And this is something I had a conversation with my dad about. And it's like I see all these people with like gay pride flags, you know, transgender stuff, and it's like transgenders for Palestine, or you know, gays for Palestine. It's like, okay, I understand if that's your thing, but all I'm gonna say is do your research, because if you researched, Palestinians don't believe in that stuff, and they have been known to behead.
Well, when they don't believe in something, they don't cancel you on Twitter.
Right.
They cancel you in real life.
In
like
real
that's
life.
a real thing.
Yeah, they will literally delete you off the face of the earth because you're gay, and I'm against that. Absolutely. I think you should have the right to be gay if you want to be gay. And that's what I love about America. Just gonna throw that out there. You can be whoever you want. However, over there, they don't care. And especially Hamas, they don't give a shit who you are, whether you're gay, American, whatever you are, they don't care. They want you dead if you're not on their side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It is scary. Me personally, I'm not terrified for my own well-being, and I think this is where you were going to lead into. I know I've trained and prepared, and I have the means for my family and I to protect ourselves.
And you also have the community. That's a big thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
I have yourself and a lot of other people around me that, you know, we could hold a city if we wanted to, just between my friends and family, you know what I mean, and your friends and family, whatever it is. Like I'm not scared of that. I know we can hold our own and whatnot, but I fear for Americans. Like this is very scary for people that are not able to protect themselves, and I don't want something like that to happen ever again. I don't ever want to see 9/11 happen.
Yeah. So here's another thing to think about. So like what's happening in Israel right now? Before this attack, you know how many citizens had, you know, like what we would say in the U.S., the right to bear arms. They did not have that.
Right.
Citizens in Israel don't have.
I think there's only certain areas that have, you know, but
but for the most part they don't. So then they get attacked, and now what? Now what are they doing? They are distributing as many weapons as they can to the citizens of Israel. And you know, that's the beauty of America, is our right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. I mean,
absolutely,
that is exactly why. Like the founding fathers, they talk about this, right? It is a right of ours. And but you know, when we go down the conversation of, you know, what can we do? Look, go through the process and arm yourself. Right, do the necessary like physical things, but there's a huge part of this that I think maybe is not talked about in the preparedness conversation, and that is go out and vote.
Yeah,
like literally vote. Our right to bear arms, like these are things that are actually in danger in the U.S. I never thought we'd get here, but they really are. Like there are inherent rights that we
Canada.
That's a live case study.
Trudeau's literally ripping the right to bear arms out of Canadian citizens. He's like, you can't buy a handgun anymore. Oh, you can't buy that anymore. You can't buy ammo anymore. They can't do anything.
No, I know. So, I mean, you know, like seriously, this is super important. Like this upcoming election, it's really, really important. And here's what I will say, you know, when you talk about gay and LGBTQ and all of these, I don't know what you'd call them, but kind of these ideology is the wrong word, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like these beliefs in the U.S. Like people make a huge deal out of these things, and people, you know, should have the right to, you know, be what they want to be as long as they're not hurting other people. Like
Precisely.
I get that, but at the same time, I'm going to say this is a bold statement, but the he, him, she, her, they, them, like bullshit, none of that matters when you are looking at a situation like this. And if
Hmm.
you step back and you look at it from the perspective that like we're talking about here, and you look at what led to 9/11, what led to Israel, what led to Ukraine, and where we are today, like this is a real issue. And in reality, those things just those things just don't matter. Like they
They get
just
thrown out the
don't.
window. Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
it's the same
You
statement
yeah,
someone's made before. It's like feminism gets thrown out the window when there's a war. You know what I mean? And I don't
yeah,
want to go there with it because I believe in female rights and everything.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
um,
But
I get what you're
no,
saying.
yeah, no, it's just so recently I went on a high school campus with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Hmm.
and I did like a little kind of speaking gig type thing. And there were 85 students there, and for the beginning of it, I was sitting there and I'm like kind of looking. I haven't been on a high school campus since I graduated high school. Like I
Hmm.
haven't been on one. So like my brother just got into high school, but I really haven't been around that age group, and especially in the classroom setting. And I'm sitting there and I'm like really observing
Yeah.
because we've been there and it's been, pretty recent. And my biggest takeaway was, man, you guys, and I get why. I mean, we did too, but like these kids, 90% of the things that they care about, they just don't
Don't
matter.
matter. Yeah.
I've gone through high school, I've gone through college, and now I'm starting my career in building. And
Hmm.
like, I know now it literally doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
same thing's true here. Like, you know, you get what I'm saying. So
No,
it's just,
absolutely. There's a lot. I think back to when I was in high school, and I'm like, why did I even care about that? Or why did I
yeah,
even think about that kind of stuff? You know what I mean? But especially now, because they have even more distractions and more issues to worry about now,
hmm,
it's like, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Everyone in this country that's an American citizen has every right given, granted by, like, on American soil. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do,
yeah.
what, you know what I mean? It, I don't want to go
Yeah.
too deep into it, but you get what I'm saying. You
No, that's
have,
fine. No, I totally get it. I think that I just think the point to like really bring home here, my point is like this upcoming, I've always taken it seriously, but I'll be honest, like I'm definitely taking it to a different level in terms of like how serious I'm taking it, because when you see these things unfold and you see the crisis at the border, I mean that's a significant crisis. Like there's
Mhm.
nothing about tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people who are coming from all around the world, but then they're coming to Mexico and they're coming through Mexico to the United States. There's nothing about that that makes me comfortable.
No,
Like it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. It's not
yeah.
because I'm racist. It's not because I don't like these other people. It's not because,
I'm
this is
all
my
for
country.
people coming here. That's how the
Oh,
U.S.
dude.
started. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean yeah,
immigrants make
that's
up some of the smartest, most successful people in America, and I'm all for
yeah.
it. But you need to come here legally, and we need to be measuring who's coming in.
Yeah. And
Like,
it really minimizes maybe the concern that people talk about, well, we don't want, people of Mexico coming in here. It's like, man, I think that they are kind of a small percentage of
oh
maybe
yeah,
a small percentage of like the people who are actually coming in here, because the
right.
border is wide
Hmm.
open, but so is Mexico. It's not
Yeah.
hard to get to Mexico. You can get on a boat in San
Mexico doesn't
Diego.
care. They're dealing with their own problems. They're with the cartel
Yeah,
and everything down there anyway.
yeah. I
So
mean,
they don't need to be worrying about their own border. It's
yeah.
like,
So
no,
like,
whatever happens, happens at this point.
yeah, yeah. And when we talk about kind of for a specific example, the pronouns and all of this stuff, and we think about the upcoming election, like just sit down and think for a second, like what is the bigger threat to
Yeah.
you and everybody that you love? Is it how people talk to you, or is it how, potentially some of the worst people on the planet can get in here, like strolling,
Did you?
walking into our,
Yeah.
our country?
Yeah. What is truly the problem now? What is the problem we face now? Right. Um, and obviously, what's a bigger threat? Did you see? I don't remember who it was. Someone from the White House. They were interviewing him like during the hours of the initial invasion by Hamas. And they were asking him, like, what are the threats? What's the U.S. focused on? What are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. He started talking about climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, our biggest threat to humanity right now is climate change.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have Russia and Ukraine teeing off on each other. You know what I mean? I didn't know this, but like you mentioned earlier, possible threats of some type of nuclear warfare, whether that's a nuclear bomb or a small, powder or whatever. I don't know how.
Let me cut you off. The PBD podcast with Tim Pool. Did you listen to the whole thing?
Was that like the 2.5 hour one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about an hour and a half in.
Okay, so at the end, that's what I'm talking about. They'll play a recording and they sort of narrate it with Putin, and he talks about it live. So go ahead.
But yeah, you've got. I don't remember where I was going with it.
You're talking about how Ukraine and Russia are going off on each other.
Russia teeing off on each other. You got Israel and Palestine. Oh, you got Israel and Hamas / Palestine / Iran teeing off on each other now. And you're over here saying like, oh yeah, climate change is a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue. Maybe it is a problem. I have my own theories on what's going on with that, but we're not going to go into that right now. But maybe it is a problem. But is it a problem right now? People are already focused on it. We've already got hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars poured into find ways and having people working on, mitigating climate change. So why is that what we are talking about? Yeah. We already know it's a problem. We've already poured a bunch of money. We've created, government entities that are working on that. And again, you've got 2 wars kicking off right now, and they're like, oh yeah, climate change is our issue.
Yeah. Here's what I think it boils down to. Here's what I think it boils down to is there's a series of questions that you have to ask yourself. Number one is you have to recognize what is going on inside the U.S., which there are very few really good things, to be quite honest. Like, you go to L.A., it's pretty bad. You go to San Diego.
This last weekend I was down there.
Yeah, I mean, L.A., San Diego. I mean, you just all throughout the U.S., New York, Chicago, San Francisco. There are huge problems, okay? So then expand out and look at the U.S. border. We've talked about that extensively on this podcast. Go outside of that. Well, we have Ukraine and Russia. We have Israel and everything going on there. You have China and Taiwan, right? The whole Taiwan thing. Nobody's really talked about that. You have all these issues going on. We know that our dollars are flooding to all of them and not our own cities. The election is coming up, and here's what I think the question is. Number one, I don't really feel safe, to be completely honest. One thing that I've said, and the guy is not a perfect guy by any means, but when Donald Trump was in office, and I don't hesitate saying this, like, I felt safer as a citizen of the United States of America. I literally felt safer. And right now I really don't. Does it mean I walk around every day and think that I'm going to see a terror? No, not at all. But
I feel like it's more likely to happen.
Yeah, of course. And I just think that the question that has to be asked, and you have to ask yourself this question when we get to the election time, and you are really looking at who has the potential to be the president of the United States. You got to ask yourself, who is going to, on sort of a foreign policy basis, but also here in the U.S., who's going to put the most emphasis, the bigger emphasis on keeping the citizens of the United States safe first? Worry about everything else after that. That's honestly, that's really my big thing here.
That's something that a lot of people don't understand. It's like, and we see it every time America's in a bad spot. You know what I mean? The whole world is in shambles right now. Entire world. And let's not even get into this, but you've even got, who knows what's going to happen with China and Taiwan in the next 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But America cannot be the America that everyone wants it to be if it's crippled on the inside. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
need to be strong, steadfast. Obviously, nothing's ever perfect. You can have cracks in your ship and still sail across the world,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to have a ship to sail, and you've got to
Yeah.
have the right crew. You've got to have the right supplies. Like, you can't you can't like use a canoe to go across the Atlantic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's what people aren't grasping. They're like, oh, we need to help everybody. We need to be America. You know, that's what we've always prided ourselves in doing. It's like, absolutely, I agree with you. And
Yeah.
maybe we can help a little bit right now. But we need to focus on ourselves, because if we keep doing this and focusing our resources outwards and not inwards, we're gonna self implode, and there's not gonna be America to help anybody.
Yeah. Yep. No, I don't disagree. Um, but man, I just think the importance of the upcoming election is huge. I
It
really
is.
do.
And
Because
I don't want anyone. I'm not gonna sit there and go say, go vote for Robert Kennedy, go vote for Trump, go vote for this
yeah.
person, go vote for that person. I know who I'm gonna vote for when the time comes. I
Mm-hmm.
just want people to take a second, take a step back, think logically, think about your family, think about your kids' futures. And
Yep.
I don't want to say don't worry about the rest of the world, but it's like, focus on us first and help everyone else later.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, I just want people to think logically and not just spoon feed off of
Yeah.
propaganda and BS that you see on TikTok and social media and whatnot. Do your own research and think rationally and logically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I couldn't say it better. So that's our take on what's going on, both kind of in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. And there's a lot going on. But
I would also say, prepare
yeah,
yourselves. Always be
yeah,
prepared.
absolutely.
Something I was texting Spencer about earlier was, we've talked about him on a podcast before, but Miyamoto Musashi
Yeah.
um, talks about, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Mm-hmm.
A warrior can still be a very peaceful person at home, but when it's time for battle, it's time for battle. So
Yep.
I think that's something our friend group really prides ourselves on, in being, very self-controlled, intelligent, consistent people in everyday life, but also,
Mm-hmm.
like, we've done Muay Thai training, we've done Jiu-Jitsu training, we
Mm-hmm.
go out and shoot. We own guns. I'm not saying you
Mm-hmm.
have to own a gun, but maybe go learn how to shoot one in case something happens, right?
Yep.
Or carry pepper spray with you, carry a knife. Have a friend close by that is maybe, um, law enforcement, whatever it is. Like, have contingencies, prepare yourself for if something is to happen.
Yeah. And I
And
would say,
I know that's
yeah.
something you wanted to touch on a little bit, so go ahead.
No, I mean, I'd say probably the biggest part of that is your community. Like, you got to build that community. If it's not you, I'm not going to say who, but somebody, in my life, it's a guy. That's just not his nature. As much as he might try, it's just, that's not the guy that you're going to stand behind when you need someone to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not some super soldier, but just like you articulated, I mean, we train, and we train hard, and not just in the gym to look good, like in the mirror,
Yeah.
like to really withstand whatever is really thrown at us. But I asked my brother the other day, and it was funny because it was before I was even thinking about this. Was actually last week, and I said, if something like terrible happened, and you had to build a team of 5 people, so it's a team of 6, but not including yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You had to bring 5 people that not, you can't, if you don't know who Jocko is, you can't say Jocko. You got to know somebody
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Who would that be? And he's telling me, he goes, well, what about you? I didn't even hesitate. It was boom, 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 boom. That's like my circle. That's my community. I know if I call, they're going to answer. If
Mm-hmm.
they call me, I'm going to answer. If they need something, I'll be there. And if I need something, they'll be there.
Absolutely.
We've joked internally, like between you and myself and our 2 other buddies, but God forbid something horrible happened and we did something on accident or whatever happened, and we make that call. The only response is, when and where and how can I help, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's what you need. That's the community, because whether it's something really mild that happens, maybe it's at your home or here on American turf, wherever, you're going to want people who you can lean on.
Yeah.
And I think that we certainly have that. And man, if you don't have it, go out there. I mean, people who believe in this stuff believe in community more than you could possibly imagine. Like they literally are there to help. You go to your gun store that probably has a range in it. Somebody there is gonna offer to help you,
teach you too. Like our friends own a store in Grand Terrace right next to Redlands.
Yeah.
Dude, they give classes, they do everything. They'll make you feel comfortable. They'll make you say, and they're honest. They'll tell you, hey, you need to be in the right position to buy something like this. Like you can't just go in and buy it expecting to know how to use it properly, how to, deter and hopefully not even have to use the weapon, but you have it there and you learn how to use it just in case. Like most people will argue you should get a shotgun for home defense. Why is that? You get a pump action shotgun, one, because it's effective, two, because it's a very good deterrent based on the noise. If you break into someone's house and they rack a shotgun,
I'm running quick.
I'm out the door. I don't care. I'm not playing that game. Maybe it's someone that doesn't know how to use it, but I'm not taking that risk. I'm gone. And it is absolutely true. My father's law enforcement. You know that. I've got a bunch of family that's law enforcement, and it is a proven fact throughout the criminal community that they don't mess around with that kind of stuff. They target people that don't, if you've got a truck with a blue line flag sticker in the back of your window outside of your house, I'm probably not going to break into that house.
Exactly right.
And I'm not saying you got to go buy a truck with a blue line flag, but if you've got a sticker that points to, bad gun control or whatever, it's like, okay, maybe I'll go break into that one because they're not going to shoot me. You know what I mean? It's all about deterrence. Me personally, I have all my stuff because if something happens, I'm prepared and I'm ready for it. I pray and I hope every day that nothing bad ever happens, and I hope I don't have to use it. But
there's never a downside to being prepared. I mean, it's like studying for a test. There's literally never a downside to studying. Even if it's a potential pop quiz, like why not do it?
Yeah. For sure.
So, listen, I think that was good. But again, we just want to go through kind of this situation, high level, maybe easy to understand. Hopefully it was. Yeah. But there's, the facts are important. And sadly, it's hard to find facts that are true and real. So you got to find those sources. I know for me, and I think for us, I can probably say, Valuetainment, right? Yeah. A lot of good information there, and there's a lot of other guys. We mentioned Mike Glover, and so anyways, but that's what we wanted to do here today. And but you can't just pay attention to the facts. You gotta figure out how you can apply it, and really what it means. I mean, even if it happens on the other side of the world, there's at some level there's probably an implication on you, and you gotta have the right people who can articulate what that implication might be. So
absolutely. Yep.
Hopefully we achieved that.
Yep, I think that was a good breakdown, and I think that's a good way to end it. I think logically, like we've stated earlier, and do your own research. That's
absolutely
a key point.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
what was that? Episode 11, right?
I believe so. Yeah, 11.
21. 10 more.
I know we're getting there.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
All right.
Okay.
Keep
all right, guys. Well,
not stirred. There it is.
Talk soon.
See you, everybody.
Bye.